welcome to part 2 of camera tracking for VFX. And in this part of the tutorial, we're going to be jumping into Blender and creating assets so we can bring them back into Fusion. But before we jump into Blender, there's a few things we need to go over. So this is where we left off on part 1. We had our camera track and we did some other things like swap out the sky and kind of get our initial look for this footage. Within Blender, we kind of want a snapshot of what's going on. So what we want to do is we want to export this footage so we can use it in Blender, so we can see what's going on. But a few things to keep note of is this footage is slow motion. So when we export for VFX in different programs, we may want to change our speed of this. And I don't think this is going to be an issue within Blender, so we're probably just going to export this out as is. But for other programs, like when I normally use Houdini, what I'll usually do is I'll either export it as is, knowing the frame rate, and within like Houdini, I can change the substeps and all that stuff to make it render out as slow motion. Blender tends to have a little issue with this sometimes. So if your physics and anything that's going on, especially when you're dealing with like smoke or explosions or something, you need that speed to match your frame rate correctly. You're better off exporting your footage at normal frame rate. So exporting it not slow motion, and then bringing it into Blender, doing your VFX, bringing it back into Fusion, and then slowing it back down. But this does cause some problems because one, we've got 96 frames for this 4 seconds. And if we were to speed it up regular speed at 4 seconds, say at 60 frames per second, that gives us a lot more frames to have to render out in Blender. So we go from rendering 96 frames to what, 240 frames. So your render time is going to be a lot more just to be able to bring it back. But for what we're just doing some little like flags or cloth just blowing in the breeze, and Blender tends to be a little slow in its physics playback anyway. So we're just going to export this out as is. And the best way to do that is you could either throw a saver node after this. So you could just add a saver and we can import that here, and on our saver node, just go export where you want. And this would export a EXR sequence. Now, sometimes that's a little heavy on your computer in Blender. So if you really don't need that quality, which we don't, we just need this as reference, so it really doesn't matter the quality, you're better off just plugging this into your media out, going to your export tab and just exporting it out as a quick video. So once you export that out, you'll have your background for your camera within Blender. So let's go ahead and jump in Blender. So I'm in Blender and I'm just going to use 4.43 because I'm not going to use Redshift, and I can't use Redshift in the latest version yet. So let's just go ahead and start a new project, and I'm going to delete everything and we're going to send up our render engine. I'm going to use cycles, GPU, and for our size, I'm going to make it the size of our actual footage, which is 3840 by 2160. So that's set up. We may or may not export this size, so I'm not going to set our render setup yet. We'll do that at the end. But we really need our resolution and our format of our actual scene to be the same as our footage, as well as our frame rate here. And then we've only got 96 frames, so we'll shorten that up. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and import our FBX. So we're going to go to File, Import, FBX, and we're going to look for our scene. And I believe this is it. And when you import it, you want to make sure you're scaling it up, because if you import it at a scale of 1, even though we upped our scale when we exported it, it's still going to import super tiny. which if you're just working with 3D stuff, that's fine. But once we're doing physics, size does matter. So we're going to go ahead and up this to 100. Leave everything the same and just import our FBX. And there we go. We've got our little scene imported. So if you look at our scene, this in the background was our image plane and our ground plane. And I don't want our ground plane, so I'm just going to delete that. And I may or may not need my image plane. So I'm just going to hide that for right now and turn the render off. So let's go ahead and set our camera up. So if I hit 0, this is our camera setup. And if I play through, you can see all of our little things we exported out or within our scene. So let's go to our camera, and on our camera, we're going to select background images. We're going to add an image. We're going to add our movie clip because I exported this out as a little movie clip. So I'll go ahead and hit open. And I'll try to find it here. Tutorials, FX. And there's our background. And down here under opacity, I can increase or decrease the opacity. Again, this is just for us to be able to reference. So that is fine. So now if I play, you notice all of our markers are extremely off. They're not lining up with our camera. And that's because our camera size is incorrect. So we need to make sure our focal length matches our focal length within DaVinci. So we can jump back into DaVinci, find our camera that we use for tracking. If we go to this camera, we can see we have focal length right here. So if I copy this, go back to Blender, paste our focal length. Now our focal length is correct. So now if we look and we play, everything is matching up nicely. And one other thing I want to do before we really get into building extra stuff is kind of clean this up, because if we look over here, we've got a lot of shapes going on. So what I'm going to do is, under my little scene collection, I'm going to create a new collection. I'm going to name this markers. And I'm going to separate my markers. So I'm going to add a new collection. I'm going to name that ground. New collection. I'm going to name this one trees. Because in this, we're really going to be using these trees as our little markers. So I'm going to highlight all those. And down here, I'm just going to grab them and put them under my tree markers. So now if I turn them on and off, you can see we've got most of our markers there in the tree. We're missing a few, but that's good. If I go ahead and grab all the rest of these, hit Shift Control, so I've got all of them. I can go ahead and grab these and move them to my ground markers. So now I can shut all my ground markers off. And it's just a little cleaner and it'll be a little faster on playback. So there we go. We've got our markers. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a like a ribbon kind of blowing in the breeze, hanging off these trees. So let's go ahead and do that. And for right now, I'm going to go to our camera. And I'm going to shut our background off just so we can see it a little better. So let's go ahead and add our image plane. And on our image plane, we're just going to rotate this on the X 90. Let's go ahead and get our camera so we can see what's going on with our shape. And all I did is hit that Y, so we can switch by hitting X or Y so we can see what's going on. So first thing I want to do is resize this. So I'm going to hit resize. And again, this isn't a Blender tutorial. I'm just walking you through this stuff. So if this is going too fast, you might want to make sure you're hitting that pause button to see what I'm doing, or go take a quick Blender tutorial. But I'm going to shrink this down so it's more like a little banner type thing. And that's good. And then I'm going to go to edit mode. And under edit mode, I'm going to zoom in here. And I'm going to grab our vertices. So make sure we're selected on our vertices up here, or vertex selection. And I'm just going to move that in. Select our other one. Move that in. So now we've kind of got that shape going on. And then next what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my edges. So I'm going to click that edge, hold shift, click this edge. I'm going to right click and I'm going to subdivide. And under subdivide, if you go up, you can see we're subdividing on one axis here, but I'm going to add like 60 subdivisions. So when we turn this to cloth, it's moving a little better. Let's get our camera view back. Then I want to do is go ahead and create a vertex group that we can use when we pin our cloth. So I'm going to go back here and select these vertex, and I'm just going to select the top two. And if I go over here under this data, under vertex groups, I can add it. I'm going to rename it to pin. And then I'm going to select assign. So now these two vertex are assigned to our pin group. So when we turn this to cloth, we can assign that so that is not moving and falling through the floor. So now we can jump back into object mode. And then one other thing I want to do is I want to switch the location of my origin here. So I'm going to select my object, hit Control period, and I can go ahead and drag my origin up. Go ahead and zoom in. And I'm going to place my origin up top in the middle-ish. So now my origin is there. So now if I move this around, it's moving around on that origin and not in the middle. And this will make it easier for us to align it and put it where we want it. And let's go ahead and save our little project here. I'm going to name it Desert Shot, I don't know, 8 I think it is. Now our next step is we want to create cloth. So I'm going to select this. We're going to go to our physics here. I'm going to select cloth. And over here under our menu, just to make it nice and easy, I'm going to select silk. And then I'm going to change our air viscosity down here to like 0.5. And we're going to leave everything about the same. And right here, this speed multiplier, this is what you would use to slow down or speed up your physics if you want to match your frame rate there, but we're just going to leave it as is. So now if we play it, it's falling through the floor. So now what we need to do is go down to shape. And if we look down here, we've got pin group. So if I select this, select our pin. Now if I play it, it's pinned nicely right there. And we can move it around and it works nicely. Now, before we start getting into caching in the actual look, I want to make sure we place these wherever we want to place them. Because once we start copying this and moving it around and we've already got bakes going on, it's going to do weird things and you have to back it up, delete the bakes, do all this crazy stuff. So we're just going to go ahead and copy all these and put them where we want them. So let's go ahead and hit 0 so we can see what's going on. And you can see we see all of our tree pins up here. And before we do that, let's go ahead and make a new collection. And we're going to name this, I don't know, flags. We'll name it flags. But I want this up to my main collection. And I need to take my image plane I made and put it into the little flags group there. So there we go. Now we're nice and straight. And let me go ahead and rename this to flag 01. And let's go to our camera and let's turn our background back on so we can see what's going on. And that's a little bright. So let's dim it down a little bit. So what I want to do is I want to take this little flag and place it on our little tree things we have here, these little markers we created. So what I can do is I can click on our little flag here, hold Shift, click on this marker, and if I hit Shift S and go to Selection to Active, it's automatically going to pin that right there. So now we've got our little flag pinned to that area. So now we can go here, copy it, paste it, and we've got a new flag. We can select our next area, hit Shift S, selection to active. So now we've got two flags and they're sticking nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this process up and place a bunch of flags where I need them to be. So this will be sped up because you don't need to watch me do this constantly. But just in case, let's do one more at normal speed. I'm going to select our flag, hit Control C, Control V to paste it. Select that one. Hold Shift, select my next tree area. Hit Shift S, selection to active. So that's how you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up so we can get to the next step. All right, so I think that's enough banners for right now. So we've got all these banners strewn across our little scene here. So now we need to add a little wind so we can get some animation going. So what I'm going to do is first, before I do this, I'm going to go ahead and hit play to make sure I don't have any weirdness going on, because sometimes when you're copying cloth and moving it, and this is why I didn't add wind or anything yet, sometimes it'll cache and do odd things when you move it, like pop half the cloth back and forth across your scene. So now we're going to go ahead and add wind. So let's go up top and hit add, force field, and we're going to select wind. And I'm going to rotate this 90. And I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to look for our last little area over here. And I'm going to bring this way back, bring this over, and let's look at what direction our wind is kind of blowing here. Kind of blowing this way a little bit. So let's go to our wind item here. And I'm going to move it over, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit. So in this wind, I'm going to make a few of them. I'm going to make one here, and I'm probably going to move one over here. But on this wind, if I go to our physics up here, I can change our strength, and I'm going to set this to about 2000. I'm going to put our flow up to about 4. And noise amount 10. And if I go back and I hit play, you can see everything is blowing. Yeah, so I probably don't need another one, but I'm going to add one just so our noise is a little different and it's not so even though we're going to change our start frames of all this stuff so it never looks even. I still want our wind to be a little different. So let's go back to our wind, and I'm going to drop this down to 1400, and I'm going to copy it, paste it. But this wind, I'm going to move up to our other little flags over here. I'm going to keep it the same direction. I'm going to change this to 1200, flow of 6. I'm going to change our noise seed up a little bit. So now if we look, we've got two different winds going that are going to be interacting with each other. Now, the one thing we need to do to make sure we're not getting that even look, unless that's what you want, is we need to change the time that this is caching. So this is how we do this. So if we go to each individual flag and we go to our little physics tabs here, if we go down to our cache, right here we can have start simulation and end simulation be different. So one, I don't care for my end simulation to go any further than 96. So I'm going to hit 96. And on this one, I'm going to hit minus 96. I'm going to go to our next one, 96, and let's say minus 48. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to alter these numbers up for each of them. The start simulation. So I just want to make sure I'm getting different places and time for this to start rendering, so they're all different. And again, like I said, the end doesn't matter because we're ending at 96 anyways. So once I've made all these changes, if I go here and select Bake All Dynamics, now all of our dynamics have been baked. So if I play it, now you can see they're all at different places in their little animation spots. So now we have our little banners blowing in the breeze. And that does look a little fast. So in order to make any additional changes, we need to delete all bakes. And we can select this and we can go to our speed multiplier. And we can change it down if we want. So we could put like say 0.6. And if I go down, I really want to go up in my quality of steps. And if I hit Bake All Dynamics again, you can see that's playing kind of in slow motion, where the other ones are a little faster. These ones are a little slower. So I'm going to go ahead and go through each one and change those speeds. And I will fast forward this. After I show you again, delete all bakes. Go to my next one. I'm going to change this to 8.6. And now I'll fast forward it all. And then once we make all our changes, we can hit Bake All Dynamics. So now if we go back, we can see our banners are slowed down a little bit, blowing in the breeze. But I don't like these two because they're kind of the same almost. So I can go back to the beginning, delete all bakes, and that's at minus 48. Oh, they were both at minus 48, which is not what I wanted. So let's change this to minus 112. Bake All Dynamics. Now they're different. So there we go. We've got our little things blown in the breeze, and we are good to go. Now the next thing to do is go ahead and add materials to these, and it's going to be fairly simple because we just kind of wanted black material like this. So I'm going to go to, let's create a new window. Let's move this over, and then here we're going to go to our shader editor. We're going to click on this, create a new one, and let's just drop this down so it's pretty black. And I'm going to up my roughness because I really don't want it to be reflecting light really at all. Let's go ahead and name this flag. And if we hit our little render, we zoom in, we can see our material color right there. Lovely. And then all we have to do is go assign all the rest of these little flags to the correct material. So if I hit 0, let's zoom out, select this, let's get us a little more room. All I have to do is go up here and select flag to assign it. Like this one, flag. So that's all of them. Now we are ready to render. So if I go ahead and just do a test render right here, select render, you can see we're rendering all of our stuff as well as our little markers here, and we are not transparent. So let's go ahead and jump back here. And what we want to do is we want to make sure we shut off all of our renders for all these markers. So I'm going to uncheck this render right here. So nothing is being rendered. Then let's go ahead and set up our actual render. We'll leave this at 4096. No, actually, let's go down to 2160. We'll see how that looks. Max threshold, that's fine. We want to denoise. If I go down to film here and select transparent and render our image, there we go. We've got our little image with our flags blowing. And also, I'm not going to add any motion because I want to do this in Fusion, because I want to match my motion that's going on with her. So once I export this with motion blur, I'm locked into that export and I can't change the motion blur. So what we want to do is when we go to our files here, first thing I want to do is change this to an OpenEXR multi-layer. Let's go ahead and create a folder here. 3D tutorial render. Let's make a new folder. And we're going to name this desert scene flags. And that's our render name there. Let's go down to files, and I want my combined, and I want my vector, because really the only thing I care about in this, if we look, there really isn't a whole lot of depth. These are all pretty clear, so I'm not going to add too much blurring back there anyway. So I'm not going to worry about my Z and my positions and all that other stuff. All I care about is my vector, so I can use that for motion blur. And since this is just black and I don't have a lot of reflections, no light, anything, I really don't care about compositing this like I would normally composite with multiple layers and all this different stuff. This is just simple black flags blowing in the wind, and there's not a whole lot of diverseness to it anyway that's going to come into play when it comes to compositing this back in. So we'll leave those there. And let's double check some other stuff. If we go to color management, see what's going on. And for some reason, my ACES isn't showing up in this version again. So I'll just leave that as is. Normally I export this out as ACES, but for some reason this Blender version isn't set up for ACES. And one other thing on this shot, what I'm going to do, instead of rendering out at our 3840 by 2160, I'm going to scale it down by 50%. Just so our images aren't so large on playback, because believe it or not, even though you would think this is the only information going in these EXRs are going to be gigantic. And playback in Fusion is going to be extremely slow. So we'll knock that down to 50% to see if that helps with our playback. And let's go ahead and hit render animation. All right, so we are done rendering, and they still took a little longer than I would have expected, like 6 seconds per frame, but what you gonna do? So we have got our exports ready for Fusion, and in here, anything else you wanted to do, this is where you would do it. So say you wanted to add some stuff on the ground, you could easily just add your little item you want, put it wherever you wanted it, and your item would be animated. You could put a little house, put smoke, put fire, put whatever you want to do to your scene. And there you go. So that is creating assets in Blender. In part 3, we will import this into Fusion, comp it, and finish up our little scene. So I will see you in part 3 of the tutorial.